Hello and welcome to the Functionally Fit podcast. I'm Jenn Rice, and I am so glad that you get to hear from my guest today. She and I met because we are in the same profession and have met through just various channels of, online, which seems to be how everybody gets connected these days. But welcome, Kerry Jenkins. I'm so glad you're here to share your story with us and some awesome, awesome things about dermatology, functional medicine, all that good stuff. So, welcome. We're glad to have you.
Thanks so much. I'm excited to be here and chat with you today.
So, Kerry has been a physician assistant like me, and that's how we originally connected. But I'd love for her to just roll a little bit with her story, her journey through the profession, probably first how you even landed in the healthcare profession, and then taking us to this interest and focus that you now have.
Yeah, so it's an interesting story. I feel like I have been a helper or a healer my entire life, just very nurturing instincts. And I knew that I wanted to be in the healthcare profession in some space. And when I graduated high school, I really was unsure of which way I wanted to go. So I ended up in a radiologic technology program, and I am a certified X-ray technician, and I did that for about 10 years, and it was really fulfilling. I worked in a specialty of orthopedic surgery. I worked in the OR, and then I worked in outpatient imaging for about 7 years, and it allowed me to take classes at night and get my prerequisites for PA school. So it was a really an amazing profession. It was my first medical career, and I loved it, but it was the springboard, and it allowed me to get my prerequisites done and apply to PA school. And I was an older student. I got into PA school at 28, and a lot of my colleagues were, younger, but there were many that were much older than I was also. So I probably was in the middle. And I went through PA school here at Nova in Fort Lauderdale. And immediately upon graduation, I fell into a dermatology job. One of my classmates got a job in dermatology, and she came in and had me follow her for a couple of days. And the owner of the practice offered me a position. And I was kind of like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that. So I was very blessed in that I was able to start in dermatology straight out of the gate. So
I want to interject real quick. What year was this?
So I graduated PA school in 2000.
Okay. So see, I graduated in 2005, and when I talk to, newer physician assistants or other PAs that want to break into dermatology, it can be a lot more like you. It was my first offer out of literally as a brand new PA. And, just as medicine has changed a bit, it can be harder for those positions to come about. So I do agree with you that I feel super lucky, and that the timing at that point and the way medicine just happened to be at that time, it was the PA wasn't quite. I remember explaining, and I'm sure you do, what a PA was to literally every other patient, right? They didn't really know.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. How do you fit into this practice? And when am I going to see the doctor? And when are you going to med school? And I was like, oh my heavens, this is painful.
Yeah. And that went on for probably quite a few years, right? And then, of course, recently now it is sort of the one thing I love about the growth of our profession is the awareness and appreciation that now just really is across so many patients we see. Whereas when we first were out there, it was very, it was sort of a little bit of, it was resistance maybe. Definitely it was a change, but there was, I think that what's really cool is that it's now, what was it, the number 2 job in America?
Yeah.
I don't even know, right?
Yeah, it's really exciting. It is. It's really exciting. But yeah, I faced that too. Every single day I would go into clinic, and I just remember having to give the first 3 minutes of explaining how I went to school and why I chose this profession and how I'm really happy being a PA. And and all that. But yeah, that has slowly, that slowly went to the wayside. I don't feel like we have to do that as much anymore. Thank heavens.
Yes, yes, good progress. And then for those people that may be listening that do want to break into dermatology, I would say that it is possible. There are opportunities. There
Yes.
are. It just maybe is a little bit. You may have a few hoops, just like with school and getting in
Right.
nowadays. More so, right? So
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I always say that I didn't go looking for dermatology. It found me and it claimed me. And I feel very blessed and honored
yeah,
and humbled to be able to have done that because the experience has been really wonderful. It definitely fulfilled my desire to be a professional and have a career and then still be able to have a family and be able to disconnect. I worked full time for many, many years, and then I gradually went down to part time, and then now I'm kind of part time. And my experience has been that I've been with the same practice for 23 years now, and
wow.
they're very I'm just a part of the team, and it's a lovely, if you can get your foot in the door with the right practice, it's really a wonderful, rewarding field to be in for sure.
That is amazing. The same, because my career is a little bit different in that I I've worked in 3 states and then kind of bounced around the different practices for various reasons. Some of it being very big practices that are 80 locations,
Oh,
others
wow.
being just one doctor or two doctor type of places. So I feel like there are a lot of different practice settings that we can grow in. And so when did you first see that there might need to be some additional learning that you'd like to do? Because you were probably pretty, cruising along pretty good, like getting to be the expert in your field, which is wonderful. But when did you sort of feel the tug to learn something else?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's amazing to me when I look back about my trajectory and how that actually unfolded for me. Like you said, I was cruising along. You get married and you buy a house and you're paying bills and then babies come. So here I am, I'm a mom and I'm working and I'm managing to balance everything to the best of my ability. And I felt like I was doing well. I did have these every now and again, these little, I don't even know how to describe it, little twinges that kind of came over me where I would feel the frustration of the medicine that I was practicing. And
Mm-hmm.
I would kind of get a little agitated and be like, this is not what I went to school for. I thought I was going to be really making a difference. And, listen, at the end of the day, a dermatology practice is a business, right? They want you to see as many patients a day as you can. It's all about the billing. It's, about being productive and revenue and that sort of thing. And there were days where I just kind of got aggravated and thought, this doesn't feel good. And then, it would pass. And then I would say about 15 years in, my youngest daughter was about 12 years old and she started having some tummy troubles. Like it was very vague. She just was having this dyspepsia type of a thing. And she would complain about it here and there. And I would ask her questions and it never really amounted to much. And I never really focused on it. It was never something that was such a big deal where I thought, oh my gosh, I've got to make an appointment with a pediatrician. We've got to work this up and figure out what's going on. So I kind of let it ride for quite a while. And then she consistently started telling me that she wasn't feeling well. And she started belching and burping when she was eating. And she told me she just felt yucky. And, here I am, I'm her mom, but I went right into PA mode, right? I'm like, well, is it stabbing? Is it burning? Is it better when you eat?
Right.
Is it lessened when you eat? What have you tried? What makes it better? What makes it work? Does it radiate? Is it, and she looked at me and she's like, I don't even know what you're asking me right now. I just don't feel well. And I was like, okay, Kerry, you need to get a check here. So I was struggling because I knew that if I made an appointment with her pediatrician, they would scope her from the top, scope her from the bottom. They would image her, they would give her some medication, and they would label her with IBS, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing wrong with that. But I just knew deep down inside that that wasn't the answer. That wasn't what was going on with her, but I did not know where to turn. And I turned to the internet. I did what my patients do. I went on Dr. Google and I started Googling, right? And I found a holistic nutritionist in my city, and I made an appointment with her. And that was the life-changing moment. That was the biggest aha, eye-opening, oh my gosh, the heavens are aligning. I made the appointment. I went in with my daughter. It was a 2-hour and 45-minute visit.
Wow.
And when we first walked into her practice, we were greeted, and she had a little reception area. And in the reception area, she had floor to ceiling, wall to wall books. And I was like a kid in a freaking candy store. I was pulling books off the shelf, and I'm taking pictures with my phone. And it was all, Jeffrey Bland and Dr. Pizzorno, How to Detoxify or Die. And it was all Mark Hyman and his nutrition books. And I was like, this is where it's at. And then I went in.
One thing I want to interject is that some people that I talk with, whether it's fellow PAs or physicians, sometimes they don't know too that these doctors and other health experts that are spearheading, leading the charge of functional medicine, they are really board certified. Most of them were practicing physicians in ENT, so like ear, nose, and throat doctors, or they were maybe internal medicine, or like they were an expert pharmacist, or it isn't like people just sort of come out of nowhere like charlatans that don't have any other medical or science background. It's really, I feel like most people land in functional medicine and integrative medicine because either they or someone in their family experiences a health episode that conventional medicine doesn't seem to help them to the extent that they want them to be helped.
100%. I couldn't agree more. And, like you said, these leaders, these giants that were standing on their shoulders, the big names, the Mark Hymans, the Jeffrey Blands, the people, these guys have been, practicing medicine for, decades. These are
Amy
legitimate.
Myers. Great
Exactly.
example. Yeah.
Yeah. They've been practicing for decades. These are smart people. And they have the same type of experience. Just like you said, they themselves had a health challenge or somebody in their family. And then they were a door opened, and they were exposed to this whole new way of thinking. And that's exactly how I fell into it. And when I went into this visit with this nutritionist, she sat down and said, "Tell me about your daughter's birth experience." And I was like, "What?" She said, "Tell me about your pregnancy. Tell me about your delivery." And, my daughter's birth story, it mattered. Like, she was a planned C-section because my first child was an emergency C-section. My OB was like, "I'm not taking chances with that. Again, we're planning your second C-section." So she was a planned section. She was excised, came out a beautiful looking baby. And within the first 24 hours, she started running a fever. She ended up having a sialolith, a little salivary stone in her parotid gland. And she spiked a fever and got really, really sick. And they ended up starting an IV in her scalp. And she was on IV antibiotics as a 24-hour newborn. And I later learned that those antibiotics affected her gut microbiome. And that was the very first domino in her story of her health that allowed what happened to her to happen. So when I sat in front of this nutritionist and she started asking me all these questions, my mind was like blown. And I thought, I just have to get into this in some way, shape, or form. And, it was, about 5 or 6 years ago, and functional medicine was really still just on the forefront. There's so much more awareness of functional and integrative medicine now. But I had the unfortunate experience of Googling functional medicine, and Wikipedia has a really nasty definition on their site of what functional medicine is. And I remember reading it and being taken aback and thinking like, well, I don't want to practice quackery medicine. And that's not who I am. I went to PA school and I was taught medicine and I practiced medicine, and darn it, I'm good at medicine. And I don't want to give that up and be thought of as a Looney Tune. So I kind of just pushed it aside, but the universe kept calling me and kept giving me messages and kept giving me signs and signals. And, I really in my soul wanted to pursue it. It was fear that was holding me back. And I will never forget, Jen, this very moving story. My last patient of the day in clinic was a 16-year-old African-American girl who came in with her aunt and her grandmother. And my nurse came out and said, she's a brand new patient. She was just diagnosed with systemic lupus erythematosus. And, she's a new patient to our practice. So I kind of collected myself and took a few really deep breaths. And I went in and sat down on my stool and sat in front of her and introduced myself. And I put my hands on her and I said, tell me your story. So, tell me what's going on. Tell me why are you here? What's going on? How can I help you? And she looked at me dead in the face and said, I was just diagnosed with lupus. My grandmother has lupus and my aunt has lupus. And I want you to tell me how my diet affects my disease. And I tell you what, I looked at her and I said, I don't know how your diet affects your disease, but I will tell you that I am ambitious and determined and driven, and we will figure it out together. And she said, okay. And I finished that visit and did the best I could to get through it because I was so thunderstruck. I got done with the visit. I walked out of there and I lost my marbles. I started bawling and I was like, okay, I hear you loud and clear. Yeah. This is what I need to do. Like, this was the sign. So
it wasn't a God whisper. It was like
it was a listen to me, And I just remember that entire drive home. I rolled down my windows. I didn't have the radio on and I just had conversations with myself. And I said, okay, I'm going to do this. And that was my inspiration, really.
That is so awesome. I love that. And that, patients are, so I practice too still part-time, about 3 days a week. And I do have patients, especially, I won't even put an age on it because I have had patients my parents' age even ask me about lifestyle, but I do see more pushback on antibiotic treatment, ongoing steroid use. Isn't there something else we can do? What other choices do I have? I don't like the idea of being on a immune suppressor. I feel like I'm on too many medications already. Have you seen my drug list? How could I possibly take something else? This is really happening in this, like, behind closed doors, you and the patient. There's concern. People are listening to information that slowly more information is getting out there, and they want better options than what we often will give them. Now, I'll be really honest and say that sometimes our options are, because we cannot, at least in dermatology practice, spend 60 minutes diving into the history. But I do think providing patients with resources outside of what we do is probably the sweet spot for that. So I think that if you're a busy healthcare provider listening to this, or if you are a patient that feels like your healthcare appointment is short, it is set up that way. And we're all in this whole system together, but there are alternative, I won't even say alternative, there are additional resources that you can use, whether it's like a coach like you had with this holistic nutritionist, that her appointments are set up to be that way, or a functional medicine practitioner, or a doctor of oriental medicine. I mean, there are different things that can be for different people, but then we come to the big rate limiting step for using all of those things is they're not insured, or there's no insurance coverage for it. You have to self-pay. I would argue, though, that you could save yourself a lot of long-term money but that's very hard there's a gap that has to be bridged, because this does not help people that are struggling paycheck to paycheck. So that's probably a whole other podcast we go into. But
yeah,
if somebody has very limited resources, and you're seeing the 10-minute visit that you can have, then maybe what we can do is offer just a little bit extra in the way of books or websites. I often will just be like, here's a podcast. You seem to be very in tune to this, and you want something more for your eczema. I think if you listen to, whether it's Mark Hyman's podcast or what have you, I don't say listen to my podcast to my patients, although I guess I could, but I definitely will say, this could be something that could be a resource, or this book.
Yeah, for sure. I love what you said that, it's not instead of, it's both and, right? It's both and. We're not looking to, replace the medical dermatologist. That's not the way that my practice is built or set up. It's an additional resource. It's having a team of people that are really invested in allowing the patient to heal and achieve wellness. That's really, what it is that I set up to do in my practice. So I love that you said, there's so many opportunities, and the cost is the limiting factor. And I try to, give resources. Like in my community, there is a group acupuncturist that does acupuncture in one room. So it's not a private room where the patient is, only there with the acupuncturist, the doctor of Oriental medicine. It's an entire room with multiple practitioners and multiple patients, but that keeps the cost down, right? So,
yes.
So that is opening a whole new door for patients to experience acupuncture,
yes,
in a group setting, and it keeps the cost affordable, So I try to have conversations with my patients as well. Like, listen, your health is all that you really have. And if you're not healthy and your life sucks, you have nothing, right? So
right.
I always tell people that, even the cash pay functional or integrated practitioner, you can use your FSA or your HSA spending account on that. That's what this is designed for, right?
Mm-hmm,
And some people are unfortunate and don't have access to even that. And that's where we have to get super creative and try to figure out the group visits, or just giving them the book to read or the podcast to listen to or the website that they can access and start doing research on their own. But I feel like there is something for everybody. We can be creative and find resources that will help somebody. And, even that is just such a gift, because most providers aren't spending the time to give the patient any resources.
No, I agree. Absolutely. So I wanted to mention, you are going to be a main speaker for the integrative medicine track that we have this year for the Diversity in Dermatology Conference. And I'm super excited because I'm part of their leadership committee. And Diversity in Dermatology is a PA and nurse practitioner focused group that puts on an annual conference for continuing medical education, collaboration, obviously networking, and allowing, even they have a great program that allows newer PAs and NPs, like we had alluded to earlier in the segment here, that it can be harder to find that mentoring, and they have a great program that can help people that are early in their career to learn the things that they may need to be a little bit more competitive. So I love that. But if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit, maybe like one topic that you plan on. Well, first, like why you said yes to speaking, because I think that would be really great to share. And then we can go into maybe, like, I think we were talking a little bit about acne in particular.
Yeah. So part of my purpose on this planet, I feel so incredibly lucky to be an integrative and functional medicine practitioner that has a focus in dermatology. I feel so privileged to be that person. And I have really come to realize that part of my purpose on this planet, in holding the position that I hold, is to share what I do with other providers, specifically nurse practitioners and physician assistants, PAs. I just felt called to let them know that this is out there and it's available. And if you have any desire or any interest in learning, we're here as resources to help facilitate that growth in those practitioners. Because honestly, Jen, I feel like I would have given my right arm if I would have been exposed to somebody doing what we have the privilege of doing if I would have been exposed to somebody like that in one of my conventional, CME opportunities that went to every single year for my medical education, if I had been exposed to a practitioner practicing this type of medicine, I would have done backflips up to speak to that person, like, hello, hi, me, can you tell me how to get started? What do I do? Sign me up. What do I,
Yes.
So I have so much passion and so much desire to share what it is that we do. And I really want to be a part of really growing the army of providers that we need to heal the broken medical system that we have, and I say that lightly. I'm not against conventional medicine. I still practice conventional medicine, and we need conventional medicine. It's just that they shine in acute settings, right? If you get hit by a bus, you really want to go to the emergency room and have them sew you back up and put you back together. It's the chronic conditions that our physicians struggle to really help these people. It's the diabetes that is crushing our financial, like it's killing the medical system. It's these chronic medical conditions that people need help healing. And I feel like part of my job here is to share that, we can make a difference. We just need to grow the army. So I'm so blessed and I feel so lucky that you offered me the opportunity and I got to meet Risha and, really be a part of the diversity in dermatology faculty and really just share this message. So it's my intention to, tell a little bit about my story and how I came to be what it is that I do and opening my own private practice. And just take, I'm gonna highlight 3 dermatological conditions, one of them being acne, and just talk a little bit about how I look at acne a little bit differently and how I work up an acne patient and what my visit looks like and what type of testing I'm gonna recommend and the therapeutic intervention that we're going to recommend for the client and how we coach the client. It's not like our visit doesn't end after they walk out the door, right? I don't just say, this is what I need you to do. Here's your 5 steps and good luck with that. And let me know how it goes 3 weeks, when I follow you up. No, we have coaching. We have group coaching calls. We have one-on-one coaching. My patients have a portal message that they can message me if they hit a roadblock and they're stumbling, they message me and we get them on track. So it's just about how my practice is different, how I work them up, and the results that we get. So I'm really excited to speak to this specific audience, being the nurse practitioners and the PAs, and any DOs or MDs that are out there that want to join us. We're happy to have you, and just kind of shine the light on how we practice just a little bit differently.
Yeah, I love that. So I know we were talking before we started hitting record, and we're talking a bit about women, obviously past teenage years and acne starting to be more of a problem than you and I have really ever seen before in our careers. I'm coming up on year 18. I think you would be done 25, right?
Yeah,
anyway.
close.
Yeah. So with that, though, there has been quite a bit of, environmental change. Certainly our food supply has changed. The pace we live, I think, we were always busy. I think back to what busy was like before the internet. It was still busy, and some would probably argue like the way we used to have to do things was like a little more stressful because we couldn't, you just literally have to go to someone's house and wait for them to come home if you were trying to, really see them, because there was, if they, there was no cell phone. But we are like highly industrial now and very comfortable, always the right temperature, most of the time, as far as like our bodies just aren't stressed in general, like from climate and that kind of thing for the most part. So then now we wonder, well, why are these women in their 40s, 50s, sometimes 60s, for sure, coming up with this acne?
Yeah, it's
the reason, right? That we would be
yeah. And when you look through, the typical medical lens, like they don't, know why we're seeing all of it, but I feel like it's just so much more of an epidemic when, we're about the same age. When you and I were teenagers, in middle school, everybody had a little bit of acne,
Pimples,
and
yeah.
if you were really unlucky, you carried that through to your high school years. And then as you kind of matured into college, things kind of stabilized. And for the most part, people's skin cleared up. And I'm just not seeing that anymore. I have, I would say in my practice, I'm seeing more adults with acne than I am teenagers. And it may just be because the adults have the, more disposable income where they can reach and find an integrative or a functional practitioner and try to figure out what the heck is going on, where the teenagers, don't have that luxury. But it's everything that you said. It's our food supply is so drastically different than what our ancestors used to eat. The majority of the population, they're not even really eating real food. Everything is so processed and preserved and food colored and radiated and ionized and genetically modified. And our body doesn't recognize it as food anymore. So that's one of the largest problems. Diet is really, really so important. And you mentioned the industrialization and the endocrine disrupting chemicals that are in our environment. It is killing us, and nobody is talking about that. Our personal care products that we're slathering all over our body, our skin absorbs these chemicals and it goes directly into our bloodstream. And then that is going to every single organ that we have. And, it's just toxic. It's toxic. So we have to get back to basics. We have to meal prep, meal plan, and cook our own food, right? We've got to get out of the drive-throughs. We've got to get out of the fast food. We have to clean our homes with vinegar and baking soda. We have got to ditch the Fabuloso and the smell no, get rid of that garbage. That is toxic. We've got to use toothpaste that doesn't have fluoride. We've got to filter our water. We've got to make sure that we can eat organic produce whenever possible. All of that is so really, really important. And then the last thing that I want to touch on that you mentioned is the busyness that we have. We don't have any more stillness for ourselves anymore. It's go, 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 do, keep up with the neighbors, post on Facebook and Instagram and show everybody how ideal our life is. And when inside we may be silently struggling, we've got to take the time to breathe. We've got to center ourselves. We've got to ground ourselves. We have to calm our nervous systems. And when we start doing that and we sleep adequately and we give our body the nutrition that it so desperately needs to run our physiology, and when we get adequate exercise and we manage our stress, magic happens, right? Magic happens. So it's all of those things. And, that's why we're here, just to give the education and to be able to be a sounding board and let people figure their way, find their own way and what that looks like for them. What toothpaste do I use? What cleaning agent do I use? What kind of shampoo? It's all of that. But that's why we're here. And that's the beautiful part of having this occupation, is just really being able to educate and get people to make choices, right? Make choices that will either allow them to be healthy or not.
I love that. And, for me, I was a struggling healthcare provider with my health. And I think that, before we close up, I just want to, if someone's listening and you're, a healthcare provider or caregiver in any way, we can often put our health on the back burner and everybody else and everything else comes first. And often it takes sometimes a large event to recalibrate. I had a pretty significant health problems before I course corrected about 5 years ago. So I think I also want to say it's never too late to, we're never too smart, too educated to make the same mistakes. And then maybe not mistakes, but just choices. The choices I was making weren't in my health best interest. And when you start to live through a lens of, is this helping me or hurting me? Is this going to nourish me or is this going to take away from what I'm doing? Then it kind of can open up this power to the self-healing. And I think healthcare providers and caregivers probably need a lot of this, because I know that a lot of us are or were very unhealthy.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree with you more. And you hear, like, think about when you're taking an airline flight somewhere and they tell you, put your own oxygen mask on first and then help those around you, right? We as women, as as women and as healthcare practitioners, we're constantly filling everybody else's cup and we're not filling our own. And if we don't prioritize that, we're of no use to anybody. We've got to prioritize our own self-care. We've got to prioritize our own health. And I love how you said the choices that you were making were not in alignment with what you were wanting, right? We cannot live a life being stressed to the gills, malnourished, sleep deprived, and expect our lives to be fabulous and feel well and have amazing sex lives and have a beautiful fit and trim body and be happy. Those two things are diametrically opposed, right? We have to make choices that will allow that response to happen.
Yeah, that's so good. So thank you so much for our conversation today. I think it was just really great. Obviously, I know that you and I could go on for hours, but if someone wanted to connect with you more, learn a little bit more about what you do, what's the best place for them to get in touch with you?
So our website is Whisper Health, and it's www.whisper-health, or a hyphen. It's whisper-health.com. And we also have Facebook and Instagram at Whisper Health. You can find us where we will post little nuggets a couple times a week. And we are happy to take phone calls. All the information is on our website, but I'm always open to, if you have any healthcare practitioners that, want to just have a phone call and have a quick conversation, I'm more than happy to be able to do that and spread the word and build that army of providers, because that's really what we're all trying to do, is just help as many people practice this type of medicine and help the patients that really are out there looking for our services.
Yeah, I love that. Well, thank you so much for being here today. And in the show notes, we'll put the contact information, a little bit more on Kerry and the things that she offers. But thanks for being here. We appreciate you.
Thanks so much for having me, Jen. It was so much fun chatting with you.